They call it the Hegemon of 1,000 empires. It is not a nation, a state, or a government in the traditional sense. It has no king to rule uncontested, or a parliament to address the woes of its people. There are no borders drawn on a map to limit it. Nor has it a constitution or a creed to define its ideals. Save one: avarice. The hegemon exists to consume and feed the needless growth and influence of its master classes. It pursues this goal through negotiation, trade, and, should it come to it, force of arms. At the heart of this realm is Protea. In the chambers of the planet's greatest citadel stands the market, which administers a vast network of trade between titanic interplanetary macrocorp entities. These hyperpowers dominate every aspect of the 1,000 empires, gripped by the invisible hand of the magnates who live solely for the acquisition of wealth and power. Their reach is ever expanding into the cosmos, crushing and manipulating all who stand in the way of their self-actualization. Before, old humanity toppled into darkness from the heights of a forgotten bright age. Now, this new mankind rises and lays claim to the cosmos. Yet, its teeming billions exist in endless servitude to the whims of their uncaring rulers who promise prosperity to a select few, kindling just enough hope to ensure obedience. Beneath the boot of their masters, the masses spend their day in toil, trapped in a cycle of debt and need as they strive to improve their credit. In the mines, on the production lines, and the sterilized layers of bureaucracy, and on blood-soaked battlefields, the hegemon citizens spend their lives securing the fortunes of others. Menial laborers, trapped in debt, work themselves to the bone while private armies slaughter each other for the resources, prestige, and entertainment of their owners. All aspects of life in the 1,000 empires turn to feed the grinding maw of avarice. To the few, the privileged, and the powerful, it is a new era of material glory. And to the many, the downtrodden and the feeble, it is a time of a quiet misery, an epoch where the only hope is the next precious mouthful of food or distraction of their toil. The last Empress of Katriath, FC2 48-190. And before we start, Project Morningstar did a recent announcement. Well, it took a while to finish this video and the script, but let's pretend it's recent, okay? Let me cook. Of their new edition of their book, and it seems like it's their first retcon, which I personally have a PTSD about. Honestly, compared to other retcons that I've seen, this isn't as bad as I thought, and it's just some minor tweaks that needed while expanding some lore and adding new logos and images. Okay, can't really complain about that one. Then again, they did mention this in their mid-year 2025 summit with some pretty cool artwork showed. I recommend it. Man, that mid-year 2025, the way I heard from the guys, they were just a bunch of nerds. They were just trembling from their legs, shivering me timbers, afraid of speaking in the audience and all that. Nah, I'm just kidding, alright? I'm just shitposting at this point. Don't get me wrong, a retcon can be used, but preferably it should be used as sparingly as possible.
It's enough slices!
Because the more you use the retcon on certain pieces of the puzzle where most people have been following it for a while and thought it was well established that doesn't need a change, the more people will get desensitized and not give a shit about your universe, and you will ironically, I know what you know, motherfucker. Look at me in the eyes, I know what you know, what I know what you know. You will ironically become Warhammer 40k if you pull any more retcons like this. Alright, let's not pretend you pulled off some armor types from Fallout and at the same time you're like, man, let's pull off the Space Marines and stuff. I know what you're thinking. That's why I usually say, to a certain extent, is that if you really care about the universe you're setting in, then just be careful with the tools you are using, because one day there will be always this one guy that will turn everything upside down and ruin everything you have built up. Oh, Matt Ward. And yes, I will mention 40k references because most of the audience that I have cultivated to a certain extent are into 40k. Really, I'm ignoring Space King on this one, alright? This script was building before Space King. Fuck you! Thus, I will bring 40k references until I finally break the cycle and have more intelligent audience. But then again, that's me expecting such a high bar for fans to reach such an intelligence. Yeah! Yeah! Then again, as far as I understand with Project Morningstar, until I shoot myself in the foot and then go over later on like, Project Morningstar has no canon video shenanigans. But as far as I understand, they're being sending it well. And because this is what I'm basing it on, because it's what they're putting out so far, this is what we understand to a certain extent canon. This is what they're establishing. Unless, hopefully, for fuck's sakes, do not do this, but do not do any massive retcons, I swear to fucking God. But you have to understand, this is a guy who looked into 40k so hard that I'm just getting PTSD. So whenever I hear retcon, I'm just gonna grab someone on the neck and just throw them out of the window. If you haven't watched my video summary of Project Morningstar, then yeah, go for it, man. It's actually pretty good. It's just, you know, I sacrificed 1 million artists in order to make my imaginary AI bot to make the video for me. One final thing for this intro is that in this video, I made the style and the way of doing it is to make it as simple as possible for people to know and understand the universe of the Hegemon. Will I make some minor mistakes? Most likely. I'm only human after all. Don't put the blame on me. Look, I'm gonna train those mistakes till failure, and they will become a success. If you know Tom Platz, then you know what I'm talking about.
Failure has been achieved, thank God. Now, the only place to go from failure is to win.
But from the source that I'm getting from is from the source book that is freely available on the Project Morningstar website. But if you want to look into it and look for other things like aka their comic series as well, which hopefully I'll get my hands on it and then do a video about it. So links will be in the description and most likely in the pinned comments, which I highly recommend for you to take a look for yourself. If you're that Uber Tylenol user, you know? Wink. The Hegemon is an empire that holds 1,000 worlds into its grasp over the whole idea, or ideology you can call it, of Avarice, while it's still expanding its territory to the rest of the galaxy. Avarice is essentially where greed and profitability is good. If you want to make a conflict and it's profitable, then it's good. You want to make peace and it's profitable, then it's good. If you want to make 40k content and make people angry by simply speaking your honest opinion, the Hegemon will support that kind of thing. It makes profit.
We've got to have money.
The Hegemon, meme-wise, is Jeff Bezos' utopia. Creepy, isn't it? Ooh. Time to sell War from Amazon Prime, boys. Gonna bump those numbers up and make sure the warehouse workers are more miserable.
Let's up those numbers!
Now you are asking, how did it originate? Who made it? And the final one, which I might add an extra later on, is who are the ones that maintain the empire of the Hegemon? Because a great sentence that lived for a very long time in real life, Rome wasn't built in a day, thus Rome wasn't held by one thing.
You know who else?
We will start with who made it. Who's this person and what Hegemon came to be? Dumno Walos. And unless there's some other pronunciations, I'm still going with that. So, suck shit. The man who was a simple guy, who had a dream, and the dream is to make profit as the main priority. Thus, avarice was created. And of course, it's stated in the book, the father of sterilization. Started on the world called Protea as the center of the Hegemon's empire, and then it expanded, conquering old humanity planets, and they just absorbed into the avarice ideology. And mostly it's made by trade and wealth. Of course, they can apply force if they want to, if everything else fails. You know, there's always that nice, good option. I'm oversimplifying this part because there's battles, there's, you know, different types of politics that involves with it into the book, where some of you might find it interesting. That's fine. But I think it's just not that important enough to address it here, or else this will be a 2-hour-long video to bring up every single detail. Who the fuck do you think I am? The Pontius? Wrong Mediterranean guy.
Mamma mia!
And then he created some sort of guidebook. It's called the Manual of the Doomno, to guide people on their quest of greed in the Avarice ideology. Some might strive and be up to the top and be wealthy, meanwhile others might not be made for such things, which Doomno admits himself, so they could just be enlisted to the directorates, which I will explain later, but just to know for now, they are the army. So these people who get enlisted, they go out, risk their lives while traveling into the unknown space in the galaxy, or, as it's called, the frontier. So we already answered like the two questions, how the Hegemon came to be and who made it in the first place. So now we shall go into the ones that have responsible roles and the ones that maintain the Hegemon Empire. So let us begin with the Exocore. Executive Corps, or Exocore, are literally just old colonies from the first human civilization, which also benefits a lot from the Macrocore and have like the largest populations. So essentially, you have the main city and then the other cities around it. They're just like big, but not as big as the main city, if that makes sense. And like here's the list of the Exocore systems, which they are much more descriptive, and you can find it in the source book right there. That's it for that. Now let's go for the next one, as I mentioned before. Macrocorp. Macrocorp are just like the provider. They are the warehouse to give the goods that you need. This is not even a meme. They are literally the Amazon giving you the stuff you ordered. Just like the Hegemon, the Macrocorp consists of different little groups that handle their own way of doing things. So let me just give you a list here and give you what I mean by that. So you got the Macrocorp being the top guy right there, and then there's like little guys on the bottom. So if you have, for example, you have the Berserang Multistellar, which they handle food production. Easy. Then you have the Armarsin Technologies that handle, dangerous and deadly weapons. Okay? And there's the Colaris. We don't talk about the Colaris other than they are French colors. Cringe. Yintosh Innovation, they handle technology. You name it, apps, programs, machines, you get the idea. 5 Hams Holistic Pharmaceuticals Incorporated, and they handle the medical section. Also, did you know they have a Lozade trailer? There's definitely nothing suspicious about them other than there's a pill that can help with your digestion, quotation marks. Anyways, Stratos Individual is about construction and development of spaceships. OneVath Underwriting is an insurance company. There's more, but it's just for the sake of simplicity. Source Unlimited is, Valve Source for Half-Life 3. I'm joking, okay? I'm joking. It's just about water processing, transportations, and distillation. Terranos 1 of the new generation Macrocore, to the best of my ability to understand it, is they repair planets and make it a tourist area. I'll give some constructive criticism a little later with this book. And for the final 4 here, Somerlum Eternity. From my understanding, even with my downgrade called English Second Language, the best I can gather from this is they expand people's lives. Feel free to explain in the comments because the book doesn't do good at explaining either. Muskov Militia Milicorp is a private military, okay? Hylex Raytech, a energy company that makes fusion reactors. And lastly, I'm just going to show you this introduction, and now I'm going to go for my side tangent here. A side tangent on this topic, which I have to give constructive criticism when it comes to the source book. Sometimes they are not good at explaining things of who they are. I'm not saying simplify it or make the IQ dumber, but the problem with this book is that it doesn't define who they are first and before giving a description or examples later. It's almost like they like being pedantic, they like to roleplay a little bit too hard, and they're just going around the answer than answering directly. Like, let's give it a good example right here. So please, sourcebook, explain to me what is the Somerlin Eternity. The longevity of individual humans at the person's level is generally above a fiscal century, almost 2/3 more in the Exocore. With costly treatments, a member of new mankind can live 2 or even 3 times that number, with the signs of the Doomno being hypothetically immortal. What am I meant to be getting from this? This doesn't even answer of who they are other than what they are doing.
It's blank.
I know it explains, it prolongs people's lives, but again, it explains of what they do, but does not say who they are. I know they are the extension of the macro core, but this still doesn't define them. I personally would like to keep this paragraph. It's honestly good, but I will just add in an additional, like a starter, like a hook, to explain of who they are. Because in my head, you need a hook to captivate someone to get into the story of things. And once they catch the hook, now you can drag them into more details about what they do, why they're doing it, and how long, they prolong their lives and all that. So it would go something like this. So Maryland Eternity is a medical company branch from the macro core that prolongs people's lives with costly treatments. Bam. Done. Done.
It's simple, really.
Now I know who they are. Now I can look into of what they do in their history. Like, okay, fuck, let's go with this one. Let's have a look in the old Space Marine Codex from 3rd edition to give a good comparison. Okay, 3rd edition Space Marine Codex, explain to me what is Space Marines. Space Marines are the most powerful and dreaded of all human warriors in Warhammer 40k. Bam, done. You got me. That's it. I know who they are. Now I can look into the rest of the stuff.
It's a simple fucking concept.
I know this term existed way before In Space King 3 was born, but there's a simple term that is called KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. If you can't tell me who these corporations, armies, and empire called the Hegemon, why should people read this?
Keep it simple, stupid.
Like, should I even talk about the video about the outside? Honestly, I had so much PTSD from seeing that. I was just sitting there, I'm like, what the fuck am I meant to be watching here? I don't even know what it is.
We're not sure who was the first to invent the hopper drive.
I feel like I got dumber watching this video.
For one, Starscream, we agree.
It is explained like, well, in order to get you into the outside, you just go use these magnetic fields that gets into the hook of the outside and all that. Oh, okay, whoa, buddy.
Sorry, I don't speak Italian.
I need to know what it is. If you can't explain to me what it is, why should I care about the rest of the description? Like, I sat there and know what it does, but it never, ever gave the answer of what it is. Again, as I said, it's a side tangent. Not everything is perfect, but of course you can't expect winning if you've never failed in life. But yeah, no, that's my constructive criticism when it comes to this book. But everything else that I mentioned from my previous video and here, I think so far is not too bad. Now, when there's an empire like the Hegemon, then there should be an army or some sense of security to protect its borders. Let us begin with the Directorate. In the intricate web of the Hegemon's management, there is the more straightforward and bullish Directorate, the military arm of 1,000 empires. Wow. Now this one is already a little bit better, but you can see the flaw in this, like they try to, clutter the wording a little bit too much to the point that it's not even going for the answer that you need. But for my video on this one, I'm gonna explain this. The Directorate is the main military force of the Hegemon, where they are responsible for the armies and fleets to protect the borders. They also do something similar, which we have today, is giving contracts to civilians, because if you can't do anything else, you might as well get paid from the military, am I right? Now, of course, they rely on the macro core for making certain materials and weaponry, but they're usually more independent because they are getting paid from the Summoned Council. As self-explanatory the name is, but I might bring them up a bit. The concept of absolute rule by a single individual has proven untenable, a lesson ingrained in the annal of human history through millennia and bloodshed. At the dawn of the Hegemon and pragmatic resolution emerged, member nations are granted self-governance within their borders, provided they align the best practices and policies set forth by the Summoned Council to ensure good business. Should I even say this again? What am I meant to get from this? This doesn't explain who is the Summoned Council. Is it a gathering of people? Is it just a summit? Is it the Jedi Council? I don't know.
How can you do this? This is outrageous. It's unfair. How can you be on the council and not be a master?
Like, I hope you understand what I mean by this, that this book sometimes has a little bit of a moment where it seems it role plays a little bit too hard, or it word clutters too much to the point that, like, you have to, it's like somehow you have to already know what it's talking about, then it's simplifying a little bit to you to have the first step foot forward, and then you can go in, as I explained it before. But unlike the book, I'll explain it to you. The Summit Council is a council. Shocking, I know, where they bring representatives from each member nation state alongside the ones that represent the macro core. By the way, the representative part was explained in the third paragraph. You could have said that at the start of the first paragraph. Anyways, I'm getting distracted on this, or else I'm going to keep hammering this over and over again. But yeah, that is the whole idea of the Summit Council. Now, jumping the gun a bit, there is the Barracan Elite. From what I've gathered, the Barracan Elite is a specialized military force that directly answers the Summit Council. Even though they are insane looking, and you can check from my previous video about this, but they are the ones that are not human, if they were in the first place. Because they go through intense training mentally and physically to become the perfect soldier. I wonder where you got that idea from. Now, we had the Hegemon, the manufacturers, the producers of certain goods, and then the armies that leads. The real question now from all this, who is the threat and who is the enemy? Let's get into that, eh? As far as I've gathered, unless they might show like some more in the later editions, but we'll see. There are two things that the Hegemon faces. One is the Exogen, aka aliens, and two, the Unionists. I mean, the Exogen is pretty straightforward, but I might as well bring it up. The variety of aliens in the Project Morningstar's world. And then, of course, explaining the Unionists themselves. I have mentioned these aliens before, but I will repeat them here again. So we have the Harvesters. They were the civilization that was discovering FTL travel, and then the Directorate found them, and as you can tell, they just punished them to the point that they become pre-industrial standards, let's just say. We have the Hamiria. Think of how a plant works. It is very similar with the species. The most popular one I think they are called is the Shigyu. The ones that are, in the first and the second animation of the Project Morningstar. For some reason, the book really likes to be autistic in their writing, but to boil it down again, the Shigyu, and I know it's pronounced differently, but I don't care. And instead, you should have wrote it that way instead, making it look like someone just mistyped it on the keyboard. But anyways, it was essentially the Shigyu had some close trade with some planets, and most likely some human planets, and eventually with some travel difficulties, you could say, that were migrating into or around the Hegemon's borders, and after that, yeah, you know what's next. I know there's already the part 3 section, but this script was made, for the 2 first parts, so yeah, just know and understand, this script was made while they had 2 episodes, or else I have to remake the script again. I cannot be fucked making the script again. Of course, there's a lot more into the Shigyu, of their appearance and their societies and etc., but the last time I recall, my parents didn't take Tylenol, thus I am more normal than the rest of the population. Now let's go for the rest of the faction. The Sage Watha, Kasupa. They're birds and they're a part of the Shigyu society. The Kuegi Nawak, furries. But at least this time they made the artwork on this a lot more better, so to be fair, I'm gonna give a thumbs up to that. But then again, we all know what furries are like, and no, you ain't entering the fucking elevator, you little touchy fuck. And, yeah, that's it for the Exogen. Okay, anyways, let's go for the Unionist. Just like in my previous video, I'll articulate a little bit differently this time here. The Unionists are a rebellious group against the Hegemon. The way it is written in the book, it is essentially, nah, I will do my own thing. There are many reasons why Unionists, they go up and do their own thing, whether they want their own independence, maybe they can't meet certain quarters, which are unrealistic and etc., and then they rebelled. Now, there is one opposition that I would say it would support the Unionists in a way, and it is called the Karanova Republic. The main difference when it comes between the Hegemon and the Karanova Republic is their approach on the market. Because this book likes to be autistic and now I am the Unionist myself, nah, I'm gonna do my own thing. The Hegemon's economic is more centralized, where the Karanova Republic is more of a free market where they believe individual economic activity, as they think that is the way to go. Obviously, the Karanova Republic is not part of the Hegemon, but I want to state this just in case. Hey, that's it for the Unionist and the Karanova Republic. Yes, they have history. Yes, they have much in depth in detail, but as I said, go check the source book, you lazy bitch. But also, this is the end of this video. So as I said, for my first Project Morningstar video, a promise is a promise. And more of it, I mentioned I wanted to make more videos about Project Morningstar, which I personally do. But I want to state this just in case. Once I am done with the source book, I'll touch it to the comics when I get the chance. But as I did with some small mentions in other videos, I am new into this, so being new, it will take some time. I just want you to keep that in mind, because this is not something simple for me where I could just read it through and then I'd just be like, yep, it's all done, yeah, I know everything now. Like, let's give some examples, right? I haven't explained how the Hegemon society works, but I don't think that will be interesting for some people. I'm assuming. Or I haven't explained, like, what is the outside? What is the frontier? And there is so much stuff to talk about, but until I get there, I'll see you on the next Project Morningstar video when I have it sorted. But, as I said, source book, there's comics, and man, I might as well mention it here again, they even released and expanded more model ranges. So if you wanted to get to see more model ranges that you want to play on tabletop and etc., it's all there. Have fun with it. But for me, I'm just like the unionist. I say, nah, I'm gonna do my own thing. And you know what's funny? I got a 3D printer. How about you send me some STL files, please? I really want to build a Barak and elite army. That's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm saying. I just need some STL files, please. I just want to build them, okay? But anyways, and before I gotta lose my voice for tonight, thank you so much for watching, and that is all for this video. You can check me on my donations, you can check me on my socials, and I will put more links into the description and the pinned comments so you guys can directly watch and see the Project Morningstar, and hopefully this will get you into the Project Morningstar and all that. If not, then, honestly, I ran out of jokes on this one, so if you don't like it, then sure, go for it, I don't care. But anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Goodbye, my brothers, and take care.